Good afternoon. I'm hoping I didn't already talk our two guests out because I was going at it for a little while there. But welcome, welcome. I want to welcome you to the Wells Fargo Jazz Series at Spoleto Festival USA, and welcome back, help me welcome back, Cécile McLorin Salvant and Sullivan Fortner. They've been here before, and we want them to keep coming back. I will tell you that on Wednesday night, Cécile's program, With Every Breath I Take, will combine the trio, 1/3 of which is Sullivan, and our, in a program of mostly standards, songs that we'd call standards, that are in bespoke arrangements by a terrific musician, Darcy James Argue, with the trio and orchestra. And well, we have an orchestra here at the festival. We have the Gaillard Center, so why not do that, right? Just gonna say a few words. So every now and then you hear a voice and you're like, I'm gonna follow this voice wherever this voice goes. And 15 years ago, when you showed up pretty much as an unknown at the Thelonious Monk International Jazz Vocals Competition, and won, I figured, okay, this voice will lead me to the next great path of jazz singing. And it did, but then it also led to all these other places. A song from the 16th century, a new version of a Kate Bush song, original compositions, a half-hour murder ballad performed on Valentine's Day at Lincoln Center. What would be more romantic? So all songs. Sullivan Fortner is one of a long line of pianists from New Orleans. One of a long line of pianists from New Orleans who have had one foot in jazz. Well, Jelly Roll Morton, Professor Longhair, Henry Butler, Alan Toussaint. One foot in jazz and the other foot wherever the hell they want that foot to be. That's the New Orleans tradition. And Sullivan's, played with many, many people, including the late, great trumpeter Roy Hargrove at a very important point in his career. Not that long ago, someone showed me this Facebook posting of the two of them, Cécile sitting next to Sullivan on the piano. They're doing Paul Simon's American Song, which just like, yeah. So you can look for that later, but that if you really want to get a sense of the rapport that these two musicians have. I should mention that Cécile has proven on her at least one recording that she plays some piano, and Sullivan has proven, in at least one concert I heard, that he sings. So, right? Is that fair to say?
It's generous in my case and fair in Sullivan's case.
So since you're going to be presenting a concert celebrating these great songs, I wanted to start with songs. So maybe each one of you, what are the first songs that you remember really getting inside you or really, meaning something to you? If you thought back.
Do you mean in life, like in childhood even?
I mean in life, yeah.
Okay. You got an answer? You go first, because I'm still thinking.
You go first.
No, I'm still thinking.
So I come from a family of singers,
right?
Particularly in church. So I grew up with hymns. I grew up with, I remember some of my earliest songs were some songs I remember as a kid singing with my family were stuff from the old National Baptist Hymn Book, and from there even James Cleveland music and Take Six's music, and there's everybody's state choir, Mississippi Mass, LA Mass, Louisiana Mass, New Jersey Mass, Chicago Mass, Florida Mass, just mass choirs. Those are my earliest. And then I think the first song that I played was from Jeopardy. It was a Jeopardy theme song. So I had an infatuation with church music, and then I had TV. as being an outlet, TV and movies and films. So like everybody's cartoon, from the Jetsons and the Flintstones all the way through like Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and, you know, Disney and Marvel and all of that stuff, all those cartoons and stuff. That was like my earliest introductions to music and songs.
Now I know from speaking to you, Cécile, that you've told me in your childhood there was a very broad range of music being listened to in your house. Right?
Yes. But I think there were so many songs that were really, really important to me growing up, but I'll just say two. Midnight Train to Georgia, Gladys Knight. That was a song that I used to sing loudly with my mom, my sister. We'd do choreography to it. It was also like a story song,
Absolutely.
Which I loved.
Dance song.
Yes. And just, you know, a whole storyline, which was really exciting and fun. And the second one I'll say, which Sullivan made me think of, you know, child of the 90s, so obviously Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas. I don't know if any of you know this song, but performed by Judy Kuhn in the movie. Just that was really, really very important to me. I could talk about jazz singers and jazz songs that built me up, but I think that's really, those two are really coming strong to mind.
Well, I do want to talk to you about jazz singers in the sense that, I mean, I know, you know, when I was young, if I was trying to sing as a teenager, can I sing for once in my life exactly the way Stevie sings it, or something like that, which is tough. But we've talked about this before. When you were first beginning to sing jazz, you're trying to sound like Sarah or Ella, maybe, right?
I think Sarah.
Most
of all, yeah. Like Misty and Lullaby of Birdland.
Sarah Vaughan.
Yes, Sarah Vaughan singing those songs. And also Poor Butterfly and Black Butterfly. There's a version of Sarah Vaughan singing Black Butterfly with, I think, Ellington Big Band. I don't remember who it was with.
It's with Ellington Big Band.
It is. Yeah. That one was huge for me. Yeah.
And for you, Sullivan, as you start to develop as a player, playing songs, were there people you were really trying to cop? Or I want to play this the way he plays this?
Well, just from the jazz idiom, or just
take it wherever you want to take
any
it.
idiom. Well, it first started with I wanted to play like the choir director at the church I grew up with. Mm-hmm. First of all, that was coupled with like a crush, so to speak. I had a crush on her. She had blonde hair and she smelled like cocoa butter. And you know, for a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, you just did something to me, you know. So I wanted to play like her, you know, the lady that I heard play every Sunday. And then from that it grew to like this guy who came to the church and he was blind. And he could play all of these big chords with one hand, but then he was walking the bass with the other one. He's like a kind of like jazz meets, gospel meets Jimmy Smith kind of vibe. I wanted to play like that, you know. And then there was another guy that came in, and so I just wanted to play like people that, you know, that I saw, people that were around me and people that, you know, kind of helped to nurture me. And then there was another guy named Ronald that I wanted to play like, because he could play all the genres of music. You know, you can go jazz, classical, and, you know, he played Baroque on a Hammond organ. That was just like, what the hell is that? You know, I wanted to do that, you know. And then I heard Errol Garner. And that's who I wanted to play like. And I've been chasing him since, you know. Yeah.
And now, Cécile, I know you were born in Miami, but when you started really singing jazz, is that when you were studying in France?
Yeah, I moved to France when I was 17, and I met a teacher whose name is Jean-François Bonnel. He's a clarinet player, and he really, really encouraged me, and he kind of pushed me to explore jazz more, to play a little piano, to learn the history of the music, and to particularly listen to musicians and singers that aren't talked about and praised enough. He gave me a lot of great people.
Who are some of those?
Blanche Calloway, Valeda Snow. We listened to a lot of Bessie Smith, which, you know, people say they like Bessie Smith, but they don't really listen to Bessie Smith.
Right.
And with Bessie Smith comes all these really great musicians and pianists. James P. Johnson I discovered thanks to her. And,
Right.
I'm really, really grateful to him. Babs Gonzalez and Abby Lincoln I discovered thanks to him. And
Abby Lincoln, the singer, and Abby Lincoln, the songwriter.
yes,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
Right. Yeah. In some ways, I mean, your songs that you write are very different than Abby's songs, but the way you go about that or your approach to it reminds me of what she was doing, in that there's really no separation between the singing and the songwriting.
That's really sweet. She's the reason that I started writing songs in
Really?
the first place. Yeah. I heard a song. When I started singing, I had decided that I would never write a song because I felt like...
Common feeling.
Yeah, I just felt like it was expected of a quote-unquote jazz singer. It's like, you must scat, you must write songs, otherwise you're not a complete jazz singer. And
That's
I thought,
probably only after Cassandra Wilson.
I think so, yeah. But I thought that was restrictive for some reason, and so I thought, I'm never going to write a song. And I listened to this Abby Lincoln album. I don't remember what the album is. Maybe it's called Holy Earth.
Holy Earth.
Holy Earth. Yeah. And that song, Holy Earth, made me want to write. I think because it's, with all great artists, well, not all of them, because some of them don't invite you to write, but she is one of those great artists that invites you to write and to express yourself, in part because the song is so beautiful, but also because it felt so authentic to her and so simple too, like deceptively simple. And so she made me feel like it was possible, and then I decided to sit at the piano and try, and then I said, oh, this is hard. This is embarrassing and hard.
Right.
But I kept at it, and I really do have her to thank for it, and I'm so, so grateful to Abby Lincoln for that, and much more, too.
But of course, you know, there's the great body of songs that you didn't write that you're singing, and it seems to me from the very start, you were, if you not expanding our horizons, expanding your own horizons. I mean, that very first album had that Burt Williams tune, Nobody, which wouldn't have been an obvious choice. And, you know, I mean, I remember a couple albums ago, you had a tune from The Wizard of Oz, a tune from Kate Bush, a Kurt Weill tune, a Sting tune, original tunes. Last time I heard you perform in concert, one song was from the 1600s, the next song was from like 3 weeks ago. Is that just, this is where you just naturally go? Or, yeah, how did your focus on repertoire develop? Or is it just, there is no specific focus?
I think as I get older, it's about accepting all the many things that I'm interested in and all the many facets of music, all the different genres that I listen to, and having the music that I make match that, rather than being only focused on one type of music that I listen to. I mean, it's pretty broad, what I'm interested in, so it's just about reflecting that more and more. I love early music, I love Baroque music, I love pop music from right now, I love country music and folk music from all over the world, and so it's just about embracing that a little bit more even though it's a little scary.
So a little bit ago, you were talking about, that period of time where you're trying to be Sarah. I remember one time Cassandra Wilson told me a story of going to hear Betty Carr at the Vanguard and telling her, I want to be the next Betty. She's like, don't be Betty. Figure out how to be Cassandra.
Yeah.
But is there any recollection in your mind of when you first started singing as Cécile McLorin Salvant and felt like, oh, this is my voice, not Sarah's?
I think it's just been a slow process, and I think it's still ongoing. I think one thing that I've always tried to encourage other people, like other young musicians, to do is to not focus too much on one major influence. Right. So Sarah was huge for me in the beginning, but then I became obsessed with people as well-known as Billy and Ella, and then I also became obsessed with like semi-unknown singers like Babs Gonzalez, lesser-known, underrated singers like Blossom Dearie. All these people started populating my influences, and I think little by little, through listening to all these people, I started to, build, I guess, my personality and my voice. And I think that it's still certainly an ongoing process, and especially now that I'm acknowledging also the influences that I had growing up. I mean, I was obsessed with Celine Dion, I was obsessed with the Backstreet Boys, Mariah Carey, I loved all my Disney movies. All of this is starting to come together, and I think through the cacophony, I'm finding myself. I don't know if that makes any sense, and through the failure to imitate, right? Like you try to sound like them, and then you fail, and then you try to sound like someone else, and you fail, and someone else, and you fail. And as the years go by, all of those failures add up to who you are. And I think that applies to life, like not just singing, but, walking through the world.
I think you're right. And all those saxophonists who at a certain point they realize, I will never ever play like John Coltrane. Yeah. So maybe I'll figure out, now that I know what he did.
Yeah. Well, John Coltrane probably experienced that too, right?
Right.
I'll never sound, I don't know who was his huge major influence, but he had to reckon with the fact that he wasn't going to sound like them either.
Right.
And then came up with...
The joke around that time was among the Sonny Rollins, those guys, well, if we all would sound like Stan Getz if we could, we were going to figure out something else, because none of us will sound. Yeah. So I know storytelling is a big part of presenting a song. And I was just talking to Sullivan about this trio album that he just put out from a performance at the Vanguard, and it's a terrific album. You started with this Alan Toussaint song, great New Orleans pianist, musician, composer, Southern Nights, which I knew as a kid as this Glenn Campbell tune, this big hit. But then I heard Alan play it, and I realized this is a story about the night sky and the countryside outside of New Orleans and Louisiana. But you had no lyric, no one sang, but I felt that. Like, can you talk about that process of telling a story through instrumental means? Is there any way to express how you go about doing that?
Well, for me, it starts with imagery. It starts with, one of the things that I'm learning as I'm beginning to read more, which is something that I've didn't like to do younger, as a younger person, but I'm kind of getting into it now, is to actually visualize it as you're reading it. You have to see these images. You have to taste these things. Whatever they're describing, you have to see that. You have to taste it. You have to touch it, So for me, with a song like Southern Nights, I know what that's like. I grew up in that. I know exactly. I grew up in the humidity like this. I've seen the oak trees and the roots coming from the ground and ruining the cars with all of these potholes and the moths hanging. I know what that is. So for me, it was just about creating an imagery and literally attaching what I see to notes. I don't like to talk much about this, but with synesthesia, I'm able to actually attach it to like, okay, I want the setting to have these types of colors. So I know if I have, if the sky's orange and pink, and okay, I can resolve that and kind of pretty much say that the key is F sharp. You know what I'm saying? So the imagery is already connected to a color and a setting, and then I can see the wind blowing, and then, okay, this is the mood that I want, this is the general tempo, this is how I feel it. You know what I'm saying? Because I see it in my head.
I see it.
Yeah.
Now, Cécile, now there are times when I'll see you in concert, and I mean, the whole thing holds together as one concert, but it's almost like, I feel like it's like, I'll pick an actress I like Cate Blanchett, where I'm like, from role to role, it's the same Cate Blanchett, but she really is, it's a whole different person and vibe. And I feel like you really, you know, to use a trite word, are embodying a song. Like, I feel like when you move from song to song, okay, I'm seeing you in a whole different role. I mean, do you think theatrically about how you're conveying a song?
Yes, I really do. Yeah. It's, I think, to me, the great joy of being able to sing, and the great privilege of having words, and also making music, but having words to say while you're making music, is that those words have a meaning, and you have to convey it to whoever's listening to you. And that, to me, is the biggest priority. It's a bigger priority than sounding good, right, or hitting the note, or sounding pretty, or looking pretty, or whatever it is. It's really, really important for me. And I think that might be like a psychological hang-up or something, but maybe it's universal, but it's so important for me to be understood by whoever it is that I'm talking to.
And in the process of doing that, I mean, something that people don't talk that much about when they talk about, say, Abby Lincoln or Betty Carter, but leading a band of terrific musicians, where, you know, you're trying to convey a song, but also you have to lead your band in how to do that, right? Yeah,
I would say that that leading a band is something that I think of that very loosely. I don't see myself as a band leader. I feel like we're more of a collective. I don't know what Sullivan thinks about this, but...
She's a band leader.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much. Well, I do want to, I mean, you know, if we talk about Ella Fitzgerald past a certain point, maybe 62 or something like that, you can't really talk about her without also talking about Tommy Flanagan and what he was doing. And, you know, some people may say accompanying or comping, but we know that it's much deeper and more than that. So I'm interested to know, as much as you can relate, how the two of you, how that musical relationship works when, you know, I don't know if you want to like describe how you approach a certain tune, or, you know, when I see that clip of you on the piano bench doing an American song, that relationship is so, you know, in the moment, and, you know, how does, well, when did you first start working together? Making music together?
9 years ago. 10, something. Yeah. Sullivan had a gig at Mesro in New York, and he invited me to sing with him for a night, 2 sets, duo. And I think we did Every Time We Say Goodbye, and I was moved to tears while singing by what he was playing. Right. It just felt like suddenly everything I was singing was real and true, mm-hmm, in a way that was not performative, or like it felt so real. And we've been playing together on and off, and then now a lot on ever since. And I think as it relates to how we approach it, I think we we play first and then maybe discuss later. We don't really discuss before we play, like, let's do it, like, let's think about this, and let's do it like this, like, let's see what we come up with. And then we don't discuss a lot, but every now and again we'll have conversations about music and what we think it should be and what we think we should be trying to convey, but it's kind of rare, I would say.
It's rare.
Yeah.
It's definitely rare. I think one of the things that I've learned specifically for you is, and I think as instrumental musicians, sometimes we feel like we have to create so much in order to make something happen musically, creating these events. Mm-hmm. And I think with the discussions that we've had, what you've taught me is just basically to just relax and just let the song do the work. Let the lyrics and let the lyrics of the song do the work. So it's kind of taken a lot of pressure off of me in that way. And I found lately that if I just play what's needed, just playing the song and understanding that what I'm doing is a support, not a carrying. Mm-hmm. And because she can pretty much sing on her own and be totally fine. So she doesn't need me to do anything. You know what I mean?
I do need. What are you talking about?
You could sing. Any singer could sing a song a cappella. It'll be fine. You'll get it. You know what I mean? So what is the real role of the pianist in that way? And I feel that it's just basically to add and to not take away from, but to provide a cushion or like a nice warm bath, so to speak. Yeah.
So we've established that on stage, when you're performing a song, you're in complete agreement. Off stage, it will be utter disagreement, right?
I feel like sometimes on stage we're sparring a little bit, but in a fun way. Like
absolutely. Right.
I don't think we're in complete agreement. I think it's like we're almost debating sometimes, but in a way that's, to me, I find it fun.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're surprising each other.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in real time, like somehow musically discussing the song like you would in a book group?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I would say so. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes she'll try to get me, like she'll call a song I don't know.
Right.
It's very hard to get Sullivan.
And I'm like, okay, she's like, oh, you don't know this. Good, I'm going to sing it anyway, see if you can get it.
Now, do you surprise her by playing?
Very rare.
Yeah.
Do you surprise her by playing in a key that she doesn't want?
Yeah, absolutely. But she will never notice it.
See, I don't have perfect pitch, so he could start in any key. I won't really know unless it just feels really high or low. Yeah. But I won't really know
until you get in trouble.
Yeah, he won't get it. I love a good surprise. I love different key, different tempo, different arrangement, start in the middle, start at the end, go back to the beginning. I love that. That makes me feel like it's still a living thing. Sometimes I think when you play for a long time, things can get dead very, very quickly. You're playing every night, you're playing the same set. I mean, we don't often play the same set, but there's songs that definitely come back, and over the course of 10 years, I think it's really nice to find ways to liven everything up. Right. And sometimes that means doing it upside down or whatever.
So you may 2 verses into a song be, we're singing it this way.
Yeah.
Okay, as opposed to maybe what you thought before you started singing it.
I wasn't thinking much before I started singing it.
Really? Okay.
Usually.
Well, when you deal with, I think like songs like Sophisticated Lady or Lush Life, which I think those are songs you do on Wednesday night, those songs, we know them so well. And there are such, versions that are, how can I not think of Johnny Hartman's version of Lush Life. But when you come up with a song, when you're doing a song like that, does that require a different level of, hey, we're going to do it this way?
I think with an orchestra it does. I think we'll never be able to be as free with those songs in terms of their structure as when we're duo. I mean, duo, we could do whatever. With an orchestra, there is actually an arrangement.
Right.
So we need to, meet everyone where we said we were going to meet them. Now, the only way I could see that changing is if we were touring with an orchestra, like 100 dates a year, and eventually maybe I could see us stretching that a little
Any
bit.
producers out there, take note. And there's an idea. Well, so what was your inspiration for this project, and how did the conversation with Darcy James Argue start?
I mean, I grew up with these really, really lush albums with orchestra, with, the Sarah Vaughan with strings and the Ella with strings and the Frank Sinatra records where that one where he's sitting in a bar on the cover and
In the wee small hours.
yeah. And so I think it's always kind of been a dream to do something like that in my way with my favorite ballads. I love singing ballads. And so everything came together for it to be able to happen now, and I'm just so grateful because it's so fun and it's such a rare treat to be able to play these songs. I mean, Sophisticated Lady, I love that song.
But for any of us who know Darcy James Argue's music, and he's got this wonderful ensemble, Secret Society, and I'd say he's a kind of subversive composer and arranger. I'm imagining that there was some conversation about how you wanted to approach these songs, how he wanted to approach these songs.
I just sort of gave him I made a playlist for him of my adored songs and arrangements. And then I told him to do what, go off. And I think we had 2 arguments about a chord change or something, about the harmony of a song. But other than that, he did what he does. And I think Darcy is so creative and such a wonderful just composer, not just arranger, but just a great composer. So I was curious to see what he would do with the prompt,
Is there any one of these arrangements that's your absolute favorite? I know it's hard to pick among your children.
I think it's between Being Alive and Barbara Song, I would say.
Okay. Yeah,
What about you, Sullivan?
Yeah, I would say Barbara.
Yeah.
I would say Barbara.
Yeah.
I heard a recording of one of the European performances, and Barbara Strong, it's riveting. It really sounded riveting.
Oh, and Parapluie is good.
Parapluie is good,
That's a good
yes.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to happen on Wednesday night is a degree of difficulty thing, that jazz trio with orchestra. So knowing, when you approach a song, you've got what key are we in, what tempo are we going to play it on, you've got the chords, have a bridge most of the time. But I know there's so much, Sullivan, invested in how you color things, how you voice them, how you phrase them, and then how that works out with the trio. Can you talk about that process of doing that with an orchestra?
I don't know. It's kind of weird. My idea is just basically play as less as possible. I mean, because there's so many specific voicings that he's written out that for color and the orchestra's already kind of covering. So for me, it's either you fill in very lightly or you don't really do too much unless you're accentuating certain things or you're doubling with somebody else in an orchestra. And with Darcy's arrangements, Darcy's so specific as to when to play and when to fill and when not to. So I just kind of follow his instructions and then also use my musical discernment. And I'm finding now playing this music more and more that I can play less and less and be fine. I find the same in playing in big bands. You know,
Right.
I don't need to be pounding chords the whole time. I can literally play Duke Ellington and just be or Count Basie and just be at the top of the register of the instrument for like a couple bars, and then just sit there and look pretty and get paid.
It's true for it.
Yeah.
But even that lesson's even true a lot in modern jazz. I mean, I remember the pianist Fred Hirsch, when he was really young, he played with Joe Henderson, a great saxophonist. And, you know, he was like, the lesson that Joe taught him was, you know, sometimes you want to lay out.
Yeah.
You want to wait until it's time, you know, why are you beginning to play now? You know, maybe there's a period of time where you're supposed to be listening, which is not that talked about either.
I remember, you reminded me of something that Jason Moran told me once in my lessons with him. He said, wait till the third time you want to play.
That's great.
And then don't come in until the next time.
That sounds
love that.
very much like Jason.
That's great.
You know, I've spent so much time in New Orleans and around New Orleans musicians, and you know, knowing that you have very well straddled that New York village vanguard world and being a New Orleans musician. Do you feel like it's true that there is something about absorbing and learning music in New Orleans that no matter where you go with it, you never lose the value of a song and the preciousness of a melody?
Absolutely. I think that so much kind of revolves around that type of cultural nurturing type of energy is just I don't know much about other cities. I can only speak for mine. And I learned a lot from horn players who sang. You know what I mean? You think of people like Kermit Ruffin. You think of people like, you know, who's the trumpet player? James Andrews. You think of the trumpet.
Trombone?
No, the one Preservation Hall.
Oh yeah.
Wendell Brunius.
Wendell Brunius.
You think of people like that. You know what I mean? You know, and that type of energy, being around that energy, even spilled off to younger musicians, people who were playing and singing. Think
of Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. You know, obviously. You know what I mean? Not to mention the legendary figures, you know. But I'm talking about the people that I grew up seeing, you know. Just a parallel of playing and singing and how important that is. This teaches you how to value the song more than your improvisation, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I feel like when I spent a long time in New Orleans, I started realizing that kind of happened to me without me realizing it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm humming melodies now. Cécile, is there a song that you would think of that you haven't performed or recorded that you're kind of like, I got to get to that?
Wow. Oh, well, there are a couple these days
Really?
that I'm thinking about. I'm Just a Bill. I want to do that song.
Really? Wow.
I just feel like it's very, I don't know, for some reason, I saw the video of I'm Just a Bill from Schoolhouse Rock, and it moved me, especially in this time.
It would be very timely right now.
It really moved me. There's also a song by Randy Newman from his album Dark Matter called Sonny Boy, about Sonny Boy Williamson, and Sonny Boy Williamson 1 and Sonny Boy Williamson 2. Right. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this story, but I can tell it really quick.
Okay, because I'd need a whole another hour, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to be very quick. Sonny Boy Williamson 1 was a blues musician who found out that this other guy, Sonny Boy Williamson 2, had taken his name and his songs and was performing them. And Sonny Boy Williamson 2 became more famous than Sonny Boy Williamson 1. and went on to, I think, teach the Rolling Stones about the blues. And so Randy Newman wrote this kind of crazy song from Sonny Boy Williamson one's perspective. He's in heaven, he's talking about he's the only blues man in heaven. And I don't know, I love that song, it's so fun. And Randy Newman I had forgotten about Randy Newman, and actually
Really?
Darcy James Argue is the one who played that song for me, and he was like, this is such a good song, you should check it out. And I don't know, maybe we'll do it, we'll see.
Randy Newman, man, it's going to be 20 years since that city was flooded, New Orleans. But that song, Louisiana in 1927, that's the Randy song. That's the song that told the story that led to that story, the story that will be.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of time, and we maybe can get a question or two if people have a question or two. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, and you have to shout it out. So
Hey, hi, I'm Chris. And we saw you a few years ago at Davis Valley Center. And you sang a song near the end, and it was yours. And it's still with me, and I'm going to tell you about it. It's, the drummer piped up with the tom. As you were singing, you're singing Why Do I? You continue to do this thing, right? You're sort of reprimanding yourself, and you kept singing, and then you chimed in with the tom, and you looked at him after, and you're like, that was good. And I thought, oh, you just witnessed this creation. It was brilliant, so I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
I think about it. And then my next question is, you had classical training early on as a singer. Talk about the rigorousness of classical training versus what is rigorous to you as a jazz singer.
Yes. Thank you. That's a great question. I think the rigors of the classical training were very about the sound of the voice, the vocal technique, particularly finding a homogeneous sound from bottom to top, top to bottom. There should not be a feeling of like the voice changing, right? And it should all just sort of be really smooth as you go through your different registers. And that was really hard for me because as every soprano has, I guess, I have a hole in my passage and it's like there's no sound there. And my lows are very thick and huge and my highs are like tinny and small and I have this hole in the middle of it. And so it was about finding a way to make that a beautiful sweep up. And I eventually decided, actually I kind of like the fact that there are totally different zones and I actually now exaggerate them rather than try to smooth them out. But yeah, it was the rigor of that, projecting the voice. The rigor of the diction was really, really huge in classical training, being understood across a room, understanding the character, understanding the context of the song. All of these things I did bring with me in my singing today. And I think in jazz, it was I do think that this should be the case in classical training, but the training in jazz was less about the sound of the voice and the instrument and this. It was less about this instrument and more about this instrument. And centering good playing and good singing and good musicianship around hearing and what do you hear and what do you understand with what you're hearing and can you connect what you're hearing with what you're going to do and react to. And I think that actually would be, the greatest classical singers, somebody like Maria Callas had this too. But I didn't feel like that was the focus in my classical training. That was more the focus in my jazz training. And time, rhythm, groove, that was really, really a big focus in the jazz training. And obviously improvisation. I mean, my God, when my jazz teacher first asked me to scat, I thought I was gonna die. It was just so embarrassing. So yeah, I would say that those are the differences in my experience.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
We had one in the back there. Speak.
I was fortunate to see your last festival performance, and I've still never seen an audience leap to its feet so quickly and proudly. The Gilliard Center, it gives the spirit or personality of the venue ever a factor in the design, putting together a set?
I would say that the venue probably does play a part, although I can't imagine, it would be hard for me to explain how, but certainly the audience plays the biggest part. That first applause after that first song sort of determines a little bit where we're gonna go. Laughter in the audience, if something is funny and we hear a laugh, or if we hear people hollering at something in a solo, like all of those things, if they happen in the beginning of the show, they do sort of determine how crazy and wild we're gonna get. If the audience is very subdued and quiet and attentive, which is nice too, I think we end up being a little bit more subdued and polite and calm. If the audience is rambunctious and crazy, then we feel like we're welcome to be rambunctious and crazy. So I think that's sort of the dance that's happening. Sullivan, would you agree?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I think, do we have one here? Okay, go for it.
Kind of bouncing off the question, actually. My friend and I are both classically trained singers who do other stuff sometimes.
Cool.
And I'm curious, my experience in the voice as I've aged is there's stuff that doesn't happen as nicely as when I was young, and there's stuff that's way more awesome now that I couldn't touch when I was younger. And I'm curious, what your experience of that is. Are you reaching and finding new things in the voice? Is there stuff you can't do anymore that you wish you could?
I love that question. I think as a kid, and as a kid, as an 18-year-old, even as a 16-year-old singer, I was trying to sound like I was 40 or 50 years old. Do you agree? You were also doing that. Yeah. You're singing these big arias that you're too young for. You want to sound like, I don't know, Jessie Norman in her prime, and you don't really take advantage of the youthful qualities of the voice, and then it's too late, and you're like, oh no. So yeah, I would say as I'm getting older, I think something really technical is that as I'm getting older, I'm singing higher and higher. The keys that I sing songs in are higher. Wow. Part of that is, I think, Sullivan's influence, because he's like, you're Fraulein Maria, you're up there. You don't need to be down, So I'm singing higher and higher, but I think in reality, my voice is getting deeper and deeper as all of our voices get as we get older. I don't know what is harder to do, because I think I've always been strategic with how I sing. I sort of do optical and auditory illusions to make things work where they need to work. And if they don't work, then I'm not going to go in that zone, or I'll find a way to zhuzh it up. So I don't know. I actually am curious how it's changed for you. Yeah.
It's everything's just different. The way I used to approach when I wanted to move a phrase along, it's different than how I approached it 10 years ago. Yes. Now. The way that I sustain things feels different. It's physical sensation, because it's just the only, I don't know, so lame, but only constants change.
Exactly. Yes.
Voice does something different.
Yes.
Abby's an amazing example of, if you listen to Abby early in her career, straight ahead, then you listen to Abby Holy Earth, and later on, it's just as brilliant, but it's a whole different range, a whole different approach to singing, and it isn't about compromising.
Totally.
It's about finding a different, it's almost like Michael Jordan at the end of his career found a different game to play.
Yeah.
But wait till you get even older, and then there are whole octaves that go away. That's what it's really. There's this album that Esperanza Spalding did with Milton Nascimento earlier this year.
Yes, beautiful.
But they're dealing with the material from Milton's album, from this album Clube da Esquina. It's 1971, 72. And then Milton Nascimento, he had the voice of an angel. Yeah. It was like the voice of an angel. And he's singing with her on this album. And he's definitely an octave down, but it's like this gravelly thing. Beautiful. But it's still it's the same singing.
Yeah.
It's really like you could listen to his 2 albums. It's really fascinating.
I mean, I was talking to a singer the other day, and not to talk about boys and girls, but I think boys and men have a very, very specific relationship to the way their voice changes. I was talking to a singer who no longer is a singer, who used to sing for the Met Opera as a child, and he had an incredible soprano as a child, and now he no longer sings. He said when he went through puberty, like, it's just not as good. It just changed so much. And I thought, my gosh, it must be such a horrible, tragic moment when you become a teen as a boy and then suddenly you lose that beautiful soprano. So I think, men's voices are the changes that they go through.
In pop
are wild.
music, most male pop music singing is high tenor.
Yeah.
You can't, and if you can't sing it in that key, it's not going to really be happening for most people.
Yeah.
The other person who aged really brilliantly, who we just lost, a true great, Andy Bay.
Oh, yeah.
If you listen
Give it
to
up for Andy Bay.
Andy Bay. Let's have a moment for Andy Bay. Yeah, because there's before Andy Bay and now it's after Andy Bay. But
Yes.
at the end of his career, it was all in that. I mean, it was probably like even bass at
Yeah.
the end, right?
But it's interesting to watch, even with the changes, how sometimes the musicality gets greater.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've watched, speaking of Roy Hargrove, it's not a singer, but he was an instrumentalist who went through all kind of body changes and went through health issues and sickness. And there were some nights where like his range was only limited to like an octave, maybe an octave and a half. He couldn't play an F above the staff. And just to watch him play through that with a certain type of, it really shows like how musicality and technique can kind of get in the way of musicality sometimes. So for him, like watching him struggle to hit some of those notes that are very easy for a lot of trumpet players, but the amount of musicality that was in it was off the charts on those moments. That was really inspiring.
McCoy Tyner near the end.
Same.
I mean, the man was known for his left hand.
Yeah.
And then his left hand was
Had
pretty
no
much
power.
gone.
I mean,
But it
Barry Harris with stroke could barely play with his left hand. Mulgrew Miller, same. Could barely play, but to listen to like the sound and the chords and like how the sound reverberated through the piano was really special in his later period. It was really, really remarkable to watch.
All right, we're gonna one last question. You've been very patient. No, go ahead.
I'm an offbeat person, so this is an offbeat question. I'm young, by the way, so I have a name for that. I am wondering, you talked about people in your past, your influencers. I'm wondering now about who you're influencing and who they are and what they mean to you. Is it a privilege or a challenge?
Wow, I love that question. Sullivan?
You got it. That's you. That's all you, baby.
So I don't know a lot of people. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that I have influenced or not influenced. I do know a few singers that I have relationships with that, sometimes I'll get like a voice memo of them singing one of my songs at a concert, and like someone will be in the audience. I think about people like Georgia Hears and Kate Cordum and Venetia Gould. And there are others, but I'm just so moved by it and so excited by it. I think there was a period of time when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, that no singers were ever coming to my shows. I felt like I didn't have any singers interested in me. And now there's like a younger generation that's interested in not only my compositions, but my repertoire. And it's a huge honor, but I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit scary sometimes, because you go, oh no, uh-oh. You things pop up, you go, oh, am I still even relevant? Like, am I still, is there a space for me? You know, it would be a lie to say that there's not a competitive energy in the music industry. And I think it's important to acknowledge and accept that, and then also to be super grateful and happy that peers and younger people are paying attention at all to what we're doing and liking it, and that, you know, my favorite people in this music have been the people who didn't have a lot of fanfare, but who laid foundations that then influenced everybody, even if they were smaller contributions. And so it's really, really humbling and beautiful to feel like you're a part of, you know, adding a little contribution to the music in some way, in some small way. So yeah, it's mostly great. And if you don't listen to the little devil on your shoulder telling you, no one cares about you anymore, you're irrelevant, you're getting old, you know, if you don't listen to that, then you can enjoy it and be happy about it. Sullivan, you answer it.
You said it. You said
You agree?
everything. I agree. I mean,
Sullivan, let's be real. I think Sullivan is one of the most transcribed pianists today. Like, people come to his shows and record it and memorize his solos and then play it on their gigs. Like, I have seen this happen over years. So you're more of an expert than me on this one.
no, I mean, I think, you know, it's really nice to, like she said, it's real nice to get those emails or those phone calls where they're like, yeah, I played a transcription of something that you played at a jam session and I won a competition off of it, and it was like, oh, okay, that's cool. How much do I get from it? Or, you know, somebody will say, you know, your playing really moves me or really touched me in some way. It kind of lets you feel like you have a purpose.
Yeah.
And it also makes you feel, like she said, you're kind of preserving or carrying on something. Because let's be real, I mean, all of us aren't completely originals.
Exactly.
You know, we sit there. I mean, I'm trying to play like Monk. I'm trying to play like, you know, Bud Powell. I'm trying to play like Art Tatum and, you know what I mean, James P. Johnson and all the greats that I love. You know, and people from my upbringing, Alan Toussaint, and, you know, I'm carrying all those people with me, you know, and if there's something in that moves someone else to discover some of those same people and to carry on some of those same traditions, then God bless, you know.
Just before we close, I actually want to address your question, which was a good one, for a moment, just because I will say, you know, I've been listening and writing about both these musicians for a long time. And, you know, we talked about Cassandra Wilson, and I think that she, a great artist who in the 1990s made people realize, hey, you can be a next great jazz singer singing a Monkees tune with a guitar-based band.
Yes.
If you respect your instrument enough and you have a clear enough intention, you can do that. And I feel like I've watched it happen. I feel like you have empowered a whole lot of, you can go to the 1600s. You can do that and then on the same stage do Blossom Dearie or Billie Holiday or a song from last week. And I think that, you know, kind of blowing those doors even wider open. And I will say, we were talking about this a little earlier. A few years ago when Sullivan was here, we brought him to Charleston Jazz, to the jazz camp in North Charleston. And for the first 10 minutes, I think you scared these kids. Challenged them and scared them in ways that were like, now, do you want to really be a musician and do you understand what that means? But then 20 minutes later, they were playing blues with you like you were old buddies. Yeah. So I think there are lots of ways. I've seen how these musicians have many, many ways to inspire musicians. So if you're lucky enough, you'll be at the Gilliard Center for With Every Breath I Take, Cécile, the trio, and the Festival Orchestra. And if you go there, then you might walk away thinking, I wish that I could hear that guy Sullivan Fortner a week from now.
Yes.
And the truth is that you can, in this remarkable trio that I've never heard, with the trumpeter Ambrose Akinmusire. You've never heard it either. Ambrose Akinmusire, trumpeter who's doing a residency, the great drummer Tyshawn Sori, and Sullivan Fortner. So I know what I'm doing for the next week or so. Anyway, please, they've been so generous. Please help me thank Cécile McLorin Salvant and Songwriting.